In this video, we continue through the Saxon poets Vīta Carolī Liber, and we are on the page that starts with Chrīsticolae vērō iam. So first I'll read it, and then we'll go through it line by line. Chrīsticolae vērō iam longo tempore Franci, Catholicam tenuere filim, multisqui per orbem, iam dominabantur populis, quibus undique fulti, praecipui virtute Dei, quem rite collebant, hanc unam poterant ne mirum vincere gentum. Qui nec rege fuit, saltem sociata sub uno, ut se militiae pariter defenderet usu, sed variis divisa modis, plebs omnis habebat, quod pagos tot paene duces, velut unius artus, corporis in diversa forent hinc inde revulsi, sed generales habet populos divisio ternos, insignita quibus Saxonia floruit olim, nomina nunc remanent, virtus antiqua recessit. So let's talk through that. So your subject of the first sentence is Chrīsticolae Franci. So in colere, vel colere is to worship. So Chrīsticolae is literally the Christ worshippers. And so we've got the French Christ worshippers. Vērō doesn't mean much, but it can mean like but or and or indeed or verily. So and the French or the Frankish Christ worshippers. Already for a long time, we've got the ablative there. Had held, so tenuere. Don't let that ere fool you. This is actually a variant spelling of tenuerunt. So it's the perfect third person plural. They had held the Catholic faith. And recall this document's written in the 900s, late 800s, 900s, that era. So when the Saxon poet uses the word Catholicum, he's not distinguishing Catholic from Protestant, because Protestantism didn't exist as a category yet, because Martin Luther wouldn't be born for, another 600 years. So he's more just referring to Christianity in this part, perhaps distinguishing it from Eastern Christianity, although the Great Schism hadn't happened yet between the East and the West. So it'd probably be best to understand this just as meaning Christianity or perhaps Latin Christianity. So already for a long time, the Frankish Christians had already held the faith. Then we've got this sentence, multisque per orbem, iam dominabantur populis. So dominabantur is from dominor, which means to be ruled. And I couldn't find any dictionary saying that this was a definite verb or even semi-definite. However, that's the only way that it really makes sense in the context of the sentence. Because the Franks aren't the ones being dominated, because we'll see later on that the conclusion here to the sentence is that the Franks will be able to overcome this people, namely the Saxons. And the rest of the page is reasons why they can overcome the Saxons in practical matters. So what this must mean is that dominabantur is talking about the Franks had now or already dominated many peoples throughout the world. And that therefore, since they've already dominated many peoples, they can also win against the Saxons. That's my interpretation of this. If you've got a better solution for dominabantur, maybe you have a dictionary or a good source showing that it's definite or semi-definite. Maybe you've got an alternative interpretation. Perhaps this is referring to maybe Christians in general putting many many peoples under Christian rule? Let me know in the comments. Quibus undique fulti, who are upheld or supported on all sides by the special virtue of God or the special power of God. They're saying, well, why do we rule? Why is our society upheld? Well, it's because of the special power of God. And for praekipoe, we've got especially or chiefly, adverb there. So especially by the virtue of God, quim rite collebant, who they worship rightly, pun intended, like by right or duly. That's where we get the word right from, spelled R-I-T-E. Hanc unam poterent nimirum vincere gentium. They had been able to conquer nimirum. We can pop over to the glossary here. They certainly could conquer this one people. So it's like, hey, we've got God on our side. We've already conquered a bunch of peoples. We can certainly conquer the Saxons as well. And then there's some practical reasons here. Que, which is and, nec rege fuit saltem sociata sub uno. So, and anyhow, saltem anyhow, neither were they associated or were they grouped together. So sociata fuit goes together and it refers to the Saxon people. They weren't gathered together or associated together sub uno rege, under one king. So we've got ablative. Utse pariter defenderet usu. That the Saxon people, so the subject here would be gens, the gens Saxonum, the people of the Saxons. So it's singular, even though it's referring to many people, that they might defend themselves together, pariter, in what conditions? In necessity, usu, of the military, so in the military necessity. Said, variis divisa modis plebs omnis, but the people, omnis habebat, but all the people were divided in various modes, so modis variis, or in various ways, that's in the ablative, and then plebs omnis divisa all goes together with plebs there. Yeah, and you might think, well, should omnis there have a macron and go with variis and modis, so in all other ways, but that's not the case, because the last two lines here has to be omnis habebat. So we've got long, this has to be short, nis habebat, to fit the meter. So that's got to be short. Quot pagos tot paine duces, almost as many pagos, districts, as dukes or leaders. So they're saying they've got one king. Well, they don't have one king, so they can't gather together. They've got like a gazillion little administrative districts with just as many leaders. And then we get a colorful analogy here. Velut unius artus corporis. So just like the flesh of one body, forent divulsi. So forent there is a third person plural imperfect active subjunctive. So it makes it hypothetical, but then it combines with revulsi, like it was torn apart, like the flesh of one body was torn apart here and there in diverse directions. So it's saying instead of functioning like one body with a head that can work together, instead they're like a body that's been torn apart in a bunch of different directions. Not very effective. So here the Saxon poet you can clearly see is a monarchist. Said, Generales habet populos divis ternus, but having a threefold division of the general population. And if we kind of think about that, generales is common nominative, and our subject of the sentence there is divisio. So the division had like threefold peoples, in which the distinguished Saxons flourished once upon a time. And he's going to get into the threefold divisions down on the next page here. The Westphalos, the Angarii, the Ostphalos, etc. We'll get to that in the next video. And then we've got this little turn of phrase, which I really like. Nomina nunc remanent. So the names now remain. Virtus antiqua recessit. But the ancient virtue has left, or it's receded, or it's gone away. And I think that's a pretty poignant line of, like this idea of the names still being around, but the virtue behind the names having disappeared. You can probably think of some things in, the modern life where there are storied names from the past, perhaps a monarchy or some famous companies or old empires that used to be great, but all that remains now is the name, and maybe they're a tourist attraction, or they've been hollowed out from everything that they were. So that's that page. I will see you in the next video.